Kaori Mihashi was born in Japan on July 7, 1974. Kaori's father owned a printing company, so they were quite wealthy. They had everything they wanted. When she was in college, her father would send her 400,000 yen every month, which was about 2,749 US dollars. This is a lot even today, and for 2006, it was an enormous amount. Anyway, after graduating from college, one day, Kaori met a man named Yusuke Mihashi at a party. They started dating, fell in love, and even began living together. After a short time, they got married and were overjoyed. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There were some tensions and arguments between them, which we'll discuss later. On the morning of December 15, 2006, Kaori came to the Shibuya police station. She seemed very tense. She told the officers that her husband, Yusuke, hadn't returned home for the past 3 days. The officers asked her if she had any idea where he might have gone, or if this had ever happened before. Kaori said, "No, this has never happened before. 3 days ago, we had a small argument and Yusuke left the house and hasn't returned since. Small arguments happen in every home, but he's never done this before. I'm really scared. Please find him." The officers questioned Kaori a bit more and then told her not to worry at all, assuring her that her husband would be found. After this, the officers began their investigation. They went to Yusuke's office for interrogation, but all the employees had good relations with Yusuke. He didn't have any enemies. In fact, his boss and colleagues said that they had also been trying to contact him for the past 3 days, but to no avail. Police officers also contacted Yusuke's family, but they also didn't know where he had been for the past 3 days. They hadn't heard from him either. If he had gone somewhere on his own, I'm sure he would have told someone, his family, his friends, or his colleagues, because it had never happened before that he missed work for 3 consecutive days. He was really hard working. In fact, he had received a big promotion a little while ago and was really happy. Yusuke is 5 feet 5 inches tall, very thin, and has a surgery scar below his chest. This was the description Kaori gave to the police, and the police began searching for Yusuke based on this description. The investigation was ongoing when they received a call. This call came from Shinjuku Police Station. Shinjuku, like Shibuya, is a place in Tokyo. This other police department informed the Shibuya police that they had found a plastic bag in front of a school, and inside it was a man's dead body. The man's head had been severed and was missing. Like his head, both his legs were also missing. Inside the plastic bag were his hands and torso. The body had no clothes, nor did it have its head, so the police couldn't identify whose body it was. Seeing the uneven cuts on the body, the police thought it had been dismembered by hand, probably with a saw. The police tried to find the missing body parts here and there, but they found nothing. The forensic report told the Shinjuku police that this man had died within the last week, and guess whose missing report had been filed in the last week? So these police officers contacted the Shibuya Police Department, where Yusuke's missing report had been filed, and gave them all the information. Now, these 2 police departments started searching for Yusuke together. However, they weren't sure if these body parts definitely belonged to Yusuke, especially given the description Kaori had provided of him. The description Kaori gave of her husband didn't match those body parts. For instance, Kaori had said her husband had a surgery scar below his chest, but there was no scar on that body. Now either this body truly wasn't Yusuke's, or perhaps there was something Kaori was hiding from them. About a week after the body parts were found, one evening, a girl was walking her dog. Suddenly, the dog started barking loudly and tried to break free from its leash. The girl tried her best to hold onto the dog, and it was a small dog, too, a Shiba Inu, I guess. But there was something that was pulling the dog towards it. It managed to break free from its leash and ran into the garden of a house. The girl followed it and reached the house, and she noticed that no one had lived in that house for a long time because the grass was very long. It was abandoned. The dog, standing in the garden, started barking loudly at a spot on the ground. When the girl went to look there, she screamed because there were 2 severed human legs lying on the ground. The girl was obviously very scared and quickly called the police. Officers arrived and analyzed the legs. It was apparent from the look of them that these legs had also likely been cut with a saw, So, just like you and I, the thought crossed their minds. Could these be the missing legs of the same body that was found a week ago in Shinjuku Ward? And from a forensic examination, they found out that this man had also died about 2 weeks ago. So these were definitely the missing legs of the body found a week ago. Unfortunately, the head was still missing, so officers couldn't tell with certainty whether this body belonged to Yusuke or not, because there was no surgery scar on the body, and forget a surgery scar, there was no scar at all. Kaori had stated her husband's height was 5 feet 5 inches, but the height of this body was approximately 5 feet 8 inches to 6 feet. Still, they got a strong hunch that this body must be Yusuke's, because the area where the legs were found was only 500 meters away from Yusuke and Kaori's house. This couldn't be a coincidence. So the officers went to Kaori's place again for questioning. As they entered Kaori's apartment, police officers noticed that Kaori was renovating the entire apartment, new paint, changing wallpapers. But the officers didn't pay much attention to this because the new year was approaching, and such renovations were normal. They questioned Kaori again, but she stuck to her statement, insisting that the body parts found definitely did not belong to her husband. Again, the investigators were at a dead end until, in December, a friend of Yusuke's came forward. Tanaka. Tanaka was a 45-year-old man who was Yusuke's senior. They had developed a very good friendship while working together, and Tanaka was very worried about his friend. Tanaka gave the officers a lot of important information about Yusuke. But then, an officer asked him what Yusuke looked like, his height, body, and all. And then Tanaka said that Yusuke was approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall and had played rugby since childhood, so his body was very muscular. This description was completely opposite to Kaori's description. Then, the officers asked Tanaka if there were any scars on his body, especially around his chest, or any marks at all. He said, "We often went to hot springs together, and I didn't see a single mark on his body." With this crucial information, they contacted Yusuke's parents requesting a DNA test. And that DNA test proved that this body was, in fact, Yusuke's. The officers were now convinced that Kaori was lying. They checked the CCTV cameras of their apartment building and saw that on the night of December 12th, Yusuke had entered their apartment alone. His movement suggested he had been drinking heavily. Once inside, he didn't come out, meaning there was no argument that night, and he didn't go anywhere. In fact, not only on December 12th, but Yusuke also didn't come out on the 13th and 14th. Officers noticed that on December 15th at 10 p.m., Kaori left her apartment carrying a large suitcase. 4 hours later, she returned to the building, and the suitcase was gone. 15 minutes after that, she was seen on CCTV again, and this time she had a large cardboard box in her hand. 20 minutes later, she returned, and the box was missing. I think after these two footages, we can conclude what was in that box and that suitcase. This evidence was more than enough for the police to charge Kaori for the murder of her own husband. They went to Kaori's apartment and arrested her. They also thoroughly searched her apartment. Since their last visit, Kaori had completely changed the apartment. The flooring was changed, all the furniture was gone, and there were only a few clothes in her closet. Inside the balcony, police found a large nightstand with some soil inside. After sampling it, they found blood traces in the soil, which confirmed their belief that the murder had occurred in this apartment. When officers presented Kaori with so much evidence, she had no choice but to tell the truth. She finally broke. Kaori told them that their marriage was deteriorating day by day. That night, at 4 a.m., Yusuke came home very drunk. As soon as he arrived, Kaori told him she wanted a divorce. This led to an argument between them. Their relationship had deteriorated so much that such arguments were normal for them. After this argument, Yusuke calmly went to sleep, but Kaori couldn't sleep, and her anger kept escalating. So much so that at 6 a.m. she got out of bed, went to the kitchen, grabbed a wine bottle, and started hitting Yusuke forcefully on the head as he slept. Of course, the bottle broke, but even after it shattered, she didn't stop. She continued to hit his head repeatedly and forcefully with the broken bottle until she herself was exhausted. Yusuke died on the spot. After such a fatal attack, it would have been very difficult for anyone to survive. When her anger began to subside, Kaori realized the enormity of her mistake. So, she hid Yusuke's body under a bed. The next day, calls started coming in from Yusuke's office, asking why he hadn't come to work. His friends, colleagues, everyone was calling. Kaori was scared. Kaori even answered some calls and told them she had no idea where Yusuke was. Kaori had no intention of surrendering, and she also knew that her husband's body would start to decompose in a few days. So she went to the market and bought a handsaw, a suitcase, and some accessories so she could easily cut her husband's body and pack it in a suitcase. She picked up the nightstand next to the bed and removed its doors. She put a plastic sheet inside to waterproof it and then filled it with a lot of soil. After cutting Yusuke's body parts, she buried them in that soil so that the decomposing process would slow down and prevent odors. After all of this, on December 15th, she went to the Shibuya police station, pretending that her husband hadn't returned home for the past 3 days and that she was very worried, even though she herself had killed him and buried him in a box. It's diabolical. And after filing the missing report, that same evening, as police officers saw in the CCTV footage, Kaori took the parts out of the soil, put them in a suitcase and a box, and disposed of them. And she even disposed of them in such stupid locations where anyone could easily find them. Now, Yusuke's head was still missing. Officers hadn't found his head with the other body parts. Kaori stated that the next day, she also took Yusuke's head out of the soil, put it in a bag, and buried it in a park in Chiba, 25 kilometers away from her house. And officers found the decapitated head at that exact location. Afterward, Kaori sent messages to everyone from Yusuke's phone saying, "I'm on a break. Please don't worry about me." At the same time, she thoroughly cleaned the entire apartment and had renovations done so that no evidence would be found. But as we all know, it didn't work out for her in the end. Now we know who committed this murder and how. The most crucial question remaining is why. I mentioned at the beginning that they were very happy together and there was no shortage of money. So what exactly happened during their relationship that Kaori took such a step and so brutally killed her own husband on their own bed, repeatedly hitting his head with that bottle in a rage until he died? This brutal act by Kaori tells us that we didn't know Kaori at all. Who exactly was Kaori Mihashi? As I said earlier, Kaori came from a very wealthy family. Her monthly allowance was 400,000 yen. But as loose as Kaori's dad's pockets were, his rules were just as strict. Everyone knows that Asian parents can be very strict with their children, but Kaori's dad was on another level entirely. To prevent Kaori from starting to date boys, he made her attend an all-girls school. He often scolded her, and if she made a mistake, he would even physically punish her, which may have contributed to her long-term trauma. After graduating from school again, her dad forced her to enroll in an all-girls university because he didn't want Kaori to meet any boys. You know, he had already decided Kaori's entire future. He wanted his daughter to become an air hostess and marry a rich foreigner. Kaori wanted to escape her dad's control, but always failed. When she applied for an air hostess position after graduating from university, unfortunately, she was rejected. Her dad was furious. He told her to come back home and find jobs there, but Kaori had no desire to return now. Call it fear of her dad, or simply that Kaori had had enough. She stayed in Tokyo. Her dad had stopped sending her money, so she started working at a bar. When she was 28, she met Yusuke Mihashi at a party, and as I mentioned before, they started dating and living together. But one day, Kaori found out she was pregnant. Their financial conditions weren't very good, and Kaori was also in debt. She told Yusuke that she was pregnant. Yusuke was overjoyed, but then Kaori told him, "Because of our financial conditions, we can't raise this child, so I want to abort it." Yusuke was completely against this idea. He told her not to worry about money, and left his studies midway to look for a job. After finding out about the pregnancy, he even proposed to Kaori, and they got married. Yusuke loved Kaori very much and was doing everything for her and the baby. One day, he came home very excited and told Kaori that he had cleared a company interview. It was then that Kaori told him, "I've already had the abortion." In that moment, Yusuke was shattered. Their financial condition had improved, but their relationship slowly began to deteriorate. One day, Yusuke found out that Kaori was having an affair somewhere else. In anger, he confronted her and locked her in a room. Kaori somehow managed to escape and ran to the man she was having an affair with. Yusuke found her and beat Kaori badly, breaking her nose. A police complaint was filed. Kaori wanted a divorce, but for some reason, they didn't separate at that time. After that, the situation only worsened. Kaori started spending Yusuke's money as if there was no tomorrow, and Yusuke also started coming home very late, spending most of his time outside. One day, Kaori found out that Yusuke was also having an affair, but she said nothing. She hired a private detective and kept collecting evidence. Kaori thought that if she divorced him with this evidence, she would get a good portion of his property. On the morning of December 12, 2006, at 4 a.m., Yusuke came home drunk. Kaori then confronted him, showed him the photos of his affair, and told him, "I want a divorce from you." Seeing all this, Yusuke became very angry and said, "I also have evidence of your affair, so even if we get divorced, you won't get a single coin of my money." Yusuke knew very well that Kaori didn't just want a divorce. She was after his money. Even after his death, Kaori called Yusuke's office many times demanding his bonus. Anyway, after saying all this to Kaori, Yusuke went to sleep, and that's when Kaori, in a fit of rage, murdered him. In Kaori's court trial, she accepted all the charges against her. Her lawyers argued that Kaori had been a victim of domestic violence since childhood and suffered from PTSD, which caused her to have hallucinations and lose control over her actions. We don't know if this is true or not, but in the end, Kaori received a 15-year prison sentence for killing her husband. Kaori and her lawyers also claimed that Yusuke used to beat her severely, and they appealed, but her prison time was not reduced. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked my narration, please subscribe to this channel and like and share the video. I'll meet you next time with a new case.